Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Flat Earth School, the school that has around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I'm Mitchell from Australia, merely a student like the rest of us, always questioning, always learning from the best teacher you could ever hope for, the Flat Earth School. Please like, subscribe, share the show to get more viewers, to get more, better audience, to get this information out here, because today's presentation will be one that everyone needs to see. So I've got Adam Meakin and the 10th man. Guys, how are you, Adam? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
I'm here. Hello, hello.
10th, how are you?
Yeah,
Thank you for
I'm
being
doing
here.
great. Thank you very much. Hey, Adam.
Evening, guys. Yeah, good to be here. Good evening and good morning to you.
Good
afternoon,
good morning for me. Isn't it brilliant? We can be on different parts of this beautiful flat plane and still be connected via technology. It's
fantastic.
And also have a presentation which we're going to go into today. So we won't ramble too much. We'll get straight into it. We don't need the formalities. We know who each other's are. This is the second presentation from 10th man. If you missed the first one, what do we call it? 10th? I can't remember. I probably should have seen my shows before. I think it was the 10th man annuals. Volume 1.
Yeah, I think that was your cover. But we should go into about how we worked to set the Sextant trap. And there are many traps. It's got many layers. Remember, you were talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, like you went into the story of how this information came about, how you got into researching the Sextant, and then we kind of formed this little alliance, if you will. Like everyone kind of got on the same page. Everyone was like, yeah, well, there's definitely something in this information. And then we were thinking, well, it's kind of all from you, 10th. Like 10th kind of said, well, if we just reference everything that's in all the mainstream references, it's referencing a flat Earth. It's referencing doing these things, and it's all describing a horizontal, a flat baseline, circles of equal altitude, all happening on a flat plane. And the further we went into it, the further 10th went into it, the further Adam, myself, QE, Nathan, we all started to realize that this is the number one flat Earth proof. There is no better flat Earth proof than this angle measuring device that measures the physical layout of the geometric plane. And then all we had to do was just kind of prompt the globe believers into talking about this argument, which is what they're doing now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the most beautiful thing was getting them to come out with videos on these topics when we have the actual resources and we can go back to them. And when they put out the videos, especially when you set them up with the horizon, that was a good one to watch. There's many more happening currently in flux, but that one on the horizon, well, we don't need the horizon. Oh, really? Why not? Tell us why we don't need the horizon. And we're going to find out today, huh?
So today is going to be a very, very devastating presentation for the globe believers, because the basic message that we're going to be telling to globers is you should have stuck on the horizon, because you're going to be in a world of pain. This is just one aspect of the Sextant trap that there's so many that we've sprung already, but the artificial horizon, the bubble level is going to be the bubble Sextant is going to be an entirely different show, but the artificial horizon is an aspect of the Sextant trap that is going to put the globe believers in a whole world of pain. You should have stuck to the actual horizon, because, well, I won't spring the trap yet, but we'll go into the presentation because it's going to be glorious. It is a great day to be a flat earther, isn't it, 10th?
Absolutely. You want me to start?
Just one sec. Yeah.
Okay.
I was watching Flatzoid's premiere, and you can see the ballers respond to him with all of this. There's an interesting game of poker bluff going off right now as well. I think that's a little bit why. Was it Arnold or other well-known? He's known by another baller name.
Adrian, the bloke I had on yesterday.
Yeah, Adrian. Yeah, yeah. Eli identified him as a well-known baller in Discord this afternoon. I forget the name. I won't do him the grace of naming it. But the point is, you can see what's going off there, and you can see a little bit of Mr. Sensible tonight playing ignorant, then eluding their nose a little bit more. They're very scared. They're very scared because the more we unfold, the more it demonstrates a flat plane that this all resolves on. And like I said, tonight's presentation is it's that next step. It's that dealing with to dip or not to dip. As they say, that is the correction. And dealing with that, I think, is a really important part, because part of the rhetoric we see in the old, even in some of the early navigation books, it requires a geometric horizon. And part of the rhetoric the ballers used was, oh, this is it. This is definitely linked to a bomb. What we're going to show here is the purpose of the horizon, I think, fundamentally, and then to demonstrate how we don't even need it to use a sextant or to measure. And this is an important bit for me, irrespective of where we are, for the heavens to render for us without perspective of our altitude, to enable us to navigate still or locate ourselves. And this is the telling bit when we got to the understanding of horizon, artificial, and bubbles, and the implications of how you use them. It was a good bit of learning, this bit.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're doing here is great learning. Like we saw yesterday from what's his name, Adrian. He came in. The globe believers don't even want to say they believe in a globe anymore. That's how devastating this argument is. They don't want to bring their globe to the table, because as soon as they do, we say things like Black Swan. We bring up Rob Durant's presentation, where if they think they're using a globe, it's actually circles of unequal altitude, those salty teardrops on the top and bottom of the globe. They're not circles of equal altitude. We never actually use a globe for navigating with the sextant. We never take into account any curvature. We don't have a flat, we don't have a curved adjacent. We only have a flat baseline. Everything to do with this argument is a flat earth argument. In the first instance, to talk about doing something like an elevation angle, to measuring an angle, to using the sextant, they have to beg the question that the earth is flat. And that's got them in a full, they don't know what's going on. It's got them in a full spin, because usually when in this debate, flat earth versus globe earth, they can beg the question of the globe in the first instance. That's what they do with every globe argument. But the sextant has turned this argument on its head. They can no longer, when talking about the sextant, when talking about elevation angles, when talking about angles to begin with, they can't beg the question of the globe anymore. They have to. They're forced into the flat earth argument. And that's why this argument at the moment is so devastating. They haven't realized that anything to do with the sextant, they're talking about a flat earth argument. It is the number one flat earth proof, and the globers are in disarray at the moment. I don't think that they're still playing catch up. But yeah, tonight's presentation is all about to dip or not to dip. That's the correction, because if you are using the horizon, obviously you have to correct for it, because you're using something that is a parallel flat plane, and your eye line is a parallel flat plane above that flat plane, the surface. But if we're not even using the horizon, we're not even, we don't even need to do the correction, because we've already got that parallel flat plane. We're already saying, when they're saying artificial horizon, when they're using a bubble sextant, which we'll go into later, they're already assuming that they've got a parallel flat plane. They're skipping that part where they can weasel in their globe. They're skipping that tangent to a curved surface. And that's why at the moment, this part of the sextant trap is going to be very painful for them once they realize what they've actually done. You should have stuck to the horizon, because you could weasel in a part of the globe, the tangent line, the thing that you're using with the sextant. If you're lining up through the sextant's eyepiece, the horizon, you can weasel in a tangent line and say that's on the curved surface of a globe. You no longer have that when using the artificial horizon. That's what we're going into. Are we ready, 10th man? Would you like to take it away?
Yeah, let's get going. So to dip, or not to dip. That is the correction. We're going to talk about the artificial horizon because it does work, and they've used it, as you can see in this drawing, using the sextant with a device called an artificial horizon. Here's David Thompson taking an observation. I believe this was along the Oregon Trail, using an observation of the artificial horizon to locate where he's at. But he's landlocked. There's no ocean. There's no real horizon. And that little thing on the ground is probably a bottle from mercury, which they used in the past. Here, 4 more pictures showing the actual usage of it, so that you can see how this device is used before we get into the details. Now, you don't have an ocean horizon, question mark. Well, you could always make an artificial horizon. Obviously, if you're on the ocean, you have an ocean horizon, and there are rules to using a sextant with a natural sea horizon. But when you're not at sea and you can't see the horizon, what do you use? You use one of these methods. So you see the mirror there on the tripod, perfectly level. You see this very expensive version here with the 3, they're called foot screws. So obviously a very small device with foot screws with levels on them to make sure that that black surface is level. And then you see at the bottom a wooden box, and the old way with the mercury as shown there. So Manual of Surveying for India, they go into it. On the artificial horizon, when the altitude of a celestial object is to be taken at sea, the observer has the natural horizon as a line of departure. But on shore, he is obliged to have recourse to an artificial one to which his observations may be referred. This consists of a reflecting plane parallel to the natural horizon. Mark those words, parallel to the natural horizon, on which the rays of the sun or other object falling are reflected back to an eye placed in the proper position to receive them. The angle between the real object and its reflected image being then measured with the sextant is double the altitude of the object above the horizontal plane. Various natural as well as artificial reflecting surfaces have been made by mechanical arrangements to afford the means of obtaining double angles, such as pouring water, oil, treacle, or other fluid substances into a shallow vessel, and to prevent the wind giving a tremulous motion to its surface. A piece of thin gauze, talc, or plate glass whose surfaces are perfectly plain and parallel may be placed over it when used for observation. But the most accurate kind of artificial horizon is that in which fluid, quicksilver, forms the reflecting surface, the containing vessel being placed on a solid basis and protected from the influence of wind. This roof effectually screens the surface of the metal from being agitated by the wind. Obviously, that's the mercury that they're talking about. Another and more portable contrivance for an artificial horizon.
We seem to have lost 10th there momentarily. He's instead of going next slide, I think he's clicked himself out of the studio. I'll just message him to make sure that he's okay, that he hasn't totally left us. Adam, something that he just mentioned then was the artificial horizon is parallel to the surface of the Earth.
Yeah, I was going to chip in at that point. It's a shame he's not here. All of this, what this is doing, it's like putting a mirror, so on the ground. But obviously, you know, the mirror in of itself can be fairly flat. But how you orientate the mirror is your issue. And this is why you don't use just a mirror, because you can't guarantee it's on it. This is why you're using mercury, treacle, whatever, molasses, whatever substance that will, by its natural properties, conform to being flat. And then you can use its reflective properties as a mirror, as opposed to just aligning. Hence the purpose of those little pyramids that are over the top, because if you're out in the wilds, tends to be air moving around, and that's going to deform the mirror and affect any results you get from it. So that's why they put those on. But basically, that's what you're doing. You're building a mirror using the properties of liquid that they find their level, as opposed to trying to orientate in a flat mirror, which would be a lot more difficult. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's just lending credence to what we've just been saying. You should have stuck with the horizon, because the horizon, you can actually weasel in a tangent line to the curved surface. When we're using something like an artificial horizon, whether it be like 10th Man just went through, mercury, it could even be a reflective mirror, it could just be oil and water. When we're using that, we're not taking into consideration anything beneath our feet. We're already assuming that it has to be flat, parallel to the flat ground. There is no tangent lines, there's no curvature, there's no globe at this point. It is only a parallel flat plane to what's beneath our feet. And as we're going to go into, hopefully 10th Man will come back in, because I did try and call him on Skype, but I think he's still in the view of
It's just good. I'm trying to get back in. I'm just ringing him on Skype, so he's just hung up.
cool.
So hopefully he'll pop in the waiting room in a second.
Technology. We're just talking about how good technology is. If you make one wrong move, it's all over.
Operator error, though, isn't it? Not necessarily the technology here.
No, well, it kind of is in our control today, which is a bit nicer. Okay, we've got 10th Man getting back in. 10th.
Yeah, what do you see on screen? Yeah, I got sound again.
Okay, you're gonna have to go back through the screen share.
Gotcha.
Back through what we're doing. I think you might have clicked off somehow. I don't know how you did that, because
it's just kicked me off. I don't know what happened.
it's very strange. But what was the last slide we saw, Adam? Do you remember?
We're on the no, I don't exactly. We're on the artificial horizon. Stick them up, and I'll tell you where we're at 10th. But
yeah, because you probably kept going 10th after.
All right, so just tell me to go. What do you see?
Well, go into your
I am.
I'll bring it up when you go in. No, I mean go.
Oh, I see it. I see it. I got you. Okay, so you did see it. Okay.
Okay, that's a full screen. So probably go to the slide before that, just to make sure we don't miss anything.
We've not got to that. No. Yeah, no. One more back.
Yeah, so that's go past that one. One forward, two forward. We definitely got to this one, and then we were going to myself and yeah. Okay, so go from here.
Okay, great. All right, sorry guys.
That's
various natural as well as artificial reflecting surfaces have been made by mechanical arrangements to afford the means of obtaining double angles, such as pouring water, oil, treacle, or other fluid substances into a shallow vessel, and to prevent the wind giving a tremulous motion to its surface. A piece of thin gauze, talc, or plate glass whose surfaces are perfectly plain and parallel may be placed over it when used for observation. But the most accurate kind of artificial horizon is that in which fluid quicksilver forms a reflecting surface, the containing vessel being placed on a solid basis and protected from the influence of the wind. This roof effectually screens the surface of the metal from being agitated by the wind. Another and more portable contrivance for an artificial horizon is represented in the following figure, which consists of a circular plate of black glass about 2 inches in diameter mounted on the brass stand, 1/2 inch deep with 3 foot screws. Remember, I showed that earlier as one of the means to do it. A, B, and C to set the plane to horizontal, the horizontally being determined thus by the aid of a spirit level. Then place the level at right angles to its former position and turn the 3rd foot screw back and forwards till the bubble again settles in the middle of its tube, the former leveling remaining undisturbed, and the plane will then be horizontal. The key thing, hopefully you're following, is the words that are being used here. Go on, Adam.
I want to interject there, because whilst you were away, Tim, we're just explaining how we're using these liquids to create a mirror surface, and this seems a bit odd, because I was saying, why can't you just align a mirror to the surface? And it's not that what's happening here. as you say in the description, it's only got a certain depth of fluid. Now, a certain amount of disalignment will mean you've got basically a shoreline in your pool of fluid. So what that bubble thing is doing isn't like what we're using a bubble sextant for. It's just to get your basic apparatus set up so it's roughly level. Then any shoreline or variance in depth, because it's not truly level, is ignored, and you've got sufficient depth of your treacle, mercury, whatever, to create a proper even reflective surface. It's a bit of geeky detail, but I was pondering on why I had the feet in that. So I was
well. Let me say something, because we did a little transition here. We went from where you have this, where you put a liquid, whether molasses, oil, or mercury, and they find their level, but you still need it undisturbed, and you need to set this device, the artificial horizon, as level as you can. When we're moving to this is a black surface. There's no liquid on this one. This is why the spirit level is being used on this one, and it must be leveled with a level, because there is no liquid on this one.
I thought it was just like, again, it says a shallow though. Just read.
Well, let me go back to the slide, and I'm going to go quickly. Watch.
It's only the geeky detail of how that works, but I
it's
thought
this one on the left.
Shallow.
See the one on the left on the top there? Yeah.
The orange one.
Yeah. So that's a black surface for reflection, and they use the levels. So this one you put in your pocket. You don't need mercury. You don't need anything, but it's got to be level. Whereas, go on.
So that is exactly what I said. You that's why you use the natural properties of the liquid to define your level, and this is doing exactly what I said. It makes it a lot harder, which requires. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot more technical looking than that old picture, but that's aligning your mirror to the plumb lines. Well,
what does water do at rest without wind agitating it? It finds its level. So with water, molasses, oil, as long as you're not sloping in any way, you're going to be okay. But when you use this device, where there is no mercury, there is nothing, you're using just a polished black surface for the reflection of the sun, it must be level.
Cool. Well, there you go. That's my learning for this evening.
All right. Well,
I don't understand why the feet, what the purpose of the feet was, and I thought with the shallow, because you've only got so much tilt, haven't you, if you stuck it on a side of a hill or something.
Now, it really is interesting that many things could be used for an artificial horizon, like you'll see it as we go in the presentation. All right. When the artificial horizon is used, the observer must place himself at such distance that he may see the reflected object as well as the real one. We're going to be touching upon this, the reflected object as well as the real one. The angle shown on the instrument, when corrected for index error, will be double the altitude of the sun's limb above the horizontal plane, to the half of which, if the semi-diameter refraction and parallax be applied, the result will be a true altitude of the center. Okay, treatise on astronomy. Let's go a little bit more deeper. At sea, the observer brings the reflected image of the sun to the horizon and allows for dip. Now notice, at sea, with the true natural horizon, you bring the reflected image of the sun to the horizon. This is where you do the little rocking motion and get it touching barely the horizon. And there you have to do dip. On shore, transition. On shore, where no natural horizon, meaning sea horizon, can be depended upon, resort is had to an artificial horizon, which is commonly a little mercury turned out into a shallow vessel and protected from the wind by a glass roof. The sun or any other object may be seen reflected from the surface of the mercury, which of course is horizontal. And the image thus reflected appears much more below the natural horizon, as the real object is above the horizon, and therefore we measure by the instrument the angle between the object and its image in the artificial horizon. That angle will be double the altitude. When mercury is not at hand, a plate of molasses will do very well. And in still calm weather, any little standing pool of water may be used for an artificial horizon. Observations taken in an artificial horizon are not affected by dip. So notice here that you have dip to take into account with the sea horizon, but no dip with the artificial horizon. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Celestial Navigation in the Teacup by Roger E. Farley. Artificial horizon. A fun way of practicing sighting the sun while on land is to use an artificial horizon. This is simply a pan of water or old motor oil that you place down on the ground in view of the sun. Since the liquid will be perfectly parallel with a true horizon, no dip corrections here. It can be used as a reflecting plane. In essence, you point the sextant to the pan of liquid where you see the reflection of the sun, move the index arm until you bring the real sun into the pupil image with the index mirror. With the micrometer drum, bring both images together, no semi-diameter corrections either, and take your reading. This gives a reading twice the apparent altitude. Look at that at the bottom, no dip correction. Remember, what's the name of the show? To dip or not to dip, that is the correction. In the Handbook of Travel, here's to dip. The dip of the horizon depends on the well-known fact that we rise above the Earth's surface. The visible horizon is depressed so that it forms a circumference of the base, a very flat cone with its apex at the observer's eye. It is obvious, therefore, that we measure from a baseline that is too low, that for this reason, the true altitude is less than the observed altitude. When the observation is thus made from the sea horizon, a negative correction for dip must therefore be applied. What he's saying here is basically to get the true altitude, to get that horizontal to be right, you've got to take it to sea level because you're standing above it and you got to get it to this low line, which is the sea level. That's why dip is always a negative function with the real sextant using the sea horizon. But not to dip goes into this. For observations with the sextant on land, an artificial horizon is used, a horizontal mirror formed by a free surface of mercury or a plain glass plate carefully leveled with a sensitive level. In an emergency, molasses, oil, etc. There's, of course, no correction for dip for angles measured with the artificial horizon, and it is to be specially noted that the index correction must be applied not to the altitude, but the double the altitude, actually measured before dividing by 2 to find the altitude. So what's it saying? Are you guys still with me or did I lose you?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
They're so quiet. I have to check.
I'm listening. That's always my disclaimer. If I'm quiet, I'm listening.
All right.
But you're going to go into the detail now because this is interesting because it's weird. We're using the sextant in a different way when we're using an artificial horizon. It creates a limitation to its use, and I think you're going to explain on that, so I'll shut up. But
no, that's fine. I just want to make sure I didn't get kicked off again. All right, Proceedings of the American Philosophical Society. What do they have for us? How about the story of Lewis and Clark? As you can see here, the horizontal plane, the sextant, the angle to the star or luminary. Figure 1, the horizontal plane containing the sextant is depicted here. The altitude alpha of the celestial body is defined as the angle between this plane, notice it's a plane, and the direction of the celestial body. An observer at sea actually measures the angle between the horizon and the direction of the celestial body. To obtain alpha, this measured angle has to be corrected for the fact that the horizon is slightly below the horizontal. Because why? He's 14 feet above sea level, right? So his eye line horizontal is not the same as when he's pointing to the horizon. He's got to get to sea level. Depending on how high the sextant is above the water, pretty much says it right there. You got to do dip when you're on the water using the real horizon. However, Lewis and Clark were on the Oregon Trail. Lewis and Clark, however, were on land, so they used an artificial horizon, which obviated this problem.
Just on
Can we go through this?
Yeah, do the obviate, because it's my favorite word. It's my
Okay.
word of the month.
Obviate, yes. So the action to deal with it becomes unnecessary. Webster's, obviate. Or make an action unnecessary. What action, Adam, is unnecessary?
To do a dip, to adjust for the height of the sextant, and that's what I want to point out here. And I'm glad you carried on just to bring that word, because I'm going to use it now. What you see the dip correction obviating for, is this height of the eye. What you don't see in any of these descriptions is there's no need to obviate with an artificial horizon for the curvature of the earth. Nothing in these honest descriptions of how it works is dealing with the curvature. What they're dealing with is the obvious bit of the optics and the effects. A couple of slides back, it talked about the cone of vision. And that's what these guys are talking about. Now, this cone of vision that they're applying it about over is over a flat plane again. So it's interesting that the need for a dip correction is when you create your parallel with a visual horizon. You can obviate that with an artificial. You no longer need to correct for dip because you've already ascertained level. You don't have to adjust for, and this is the point, the eye level of the sextant above the flat plane that you're trying to reference to. And that's the important thing with the visual use of the sextant. You're referencing that surface, that horizon.
Yeah, so to dip or not to dip, that is the correction, is really simple. If you're in the ocean and you're going to use the natural sea horizon, you got to get to the water line. But who's doing it from there? Nobody. They do it from the top of the deck of a boat. So you got to minus that. That's why it's always a subtraction to get it to that horizontal baseline. Okay, we're going to see how that plays out. But when you're using the artificial horizon, guess what? You don't have to do it because you already have horizontal. You already assume it's flat. It's just that simple. It's devastating for the ballers. American Practical Navigator, an epitome of navigation, Nathaniel Bowditch. We were told we need to read this book. Well, guess what? I got 3 copies of it. All different dates, plus the 1802 original version on the computer. So let's go into it. The artificial horizon, measurement of altitude, requires a horizontal reference. Very simple. If the sextant works on land with artificial horizon, it requires a horizontal reference. Guess what it needs in the ocean? Same thing, just a little different because you're using the natural horizon. In the case of a marine sextant, this is commonly provided by the visible sea horizon. If this is not clearly visible, meaning the sea horizon, reliable altitudes cannot be measured unless a different horizontal reference is available. Such a reference is commonly called a artificial horizon. On land, where the visible horizon is not a reliable indication of the horizontal or external, an external artificial horizon can be devised. Any horizontal reflecting surface will serve the purpose. Is this not the most devastating words you've ever heard? Any horizontal reflecting surface will serve the purpose. If you've at all been following this argument, the GP of a star could be 3,000-4,000 miles away. It has to be horizontal. It has to have a radius line which doesn't curve from the GP to the observer. A pan of mercury, heavy oil, molasses, or other viscous liquid sheltered from wind is perhaps the simplest. When the observation has been made, apply the index correction and any other instrumental correction, as well as any correction for personal error. Then take half the remaining angle and apply all other corrections except dip. This is Nathaniel Bowditch. This is the Practical Navigator. What is dip? Height of eye correction, not curving of Earth. It's right there. Since this is not applicable, Interesting. Horizontal. Most of us know what it is. Of or relating to the apparent junction of earth and sky situated near the horizon. Parallel to the plane of or operating in a plane parallel to the horizon or to a baseline level. Horizontal, parallel to or in the plane of the horizon. At right angles to a vertical line. Something such as a line, a plane, or object that is horizontal. Horizontal, the opposite of vertical. Something horizontal is arranged sideways, like a person lying down. When you sleep, unless you're a horse, your body is horizontal. Horizontal things are parallel to the ground or running in the same direction as the horizon. If you stack books horizontally, then you're on their side. You hear a lot about the horizontal lines in geometry. If you picture a square, the top and bottom lines are horizontal lines. Parallel to or in the plane of the horizon or a baseline, a horizontal surface. Flat, horizontally level. Level, being on the precise horizontal plane. Bottom right of the slide. The Inca homeland, uniquely high, was also uniquely steep, with slopes of more than 65 degrees from the horizontal. Let's go to the top right. Think you know what horizontal is by now? Let's test your knowledge. The opposite of horizontal is vertical, circular, modular, or tangential. Answer is vertical.
Right. Come on.
Yes, go.
Just a sec. This, you showed us this last night, and I mean, the answer's obvious. What played in my head, if you're a baller, right, Mitchell, do you agree with? If you're a baller trying to answer this question, there are two equally correct answers on a sphere, aren't they? Because it's the phrase they use. It's tangential. You create a tangent to the horizon. It's not vertical. And the reason, and this is very telling that they'd struggle to get this right, because they would say that's what they're creating, a tangent. It's not the vertical to the horizon. It's the tangent created at the horizon to the center of their ball. I just wonder if there's any ballers who'd respond to that. Would they struggle with that answer? Or would they pick the word vertical? And why wouldn't they pick the word tangential?
Well, it's interesting that we've got some ballers now. They're in moving away from the horizon because they thought the horizon was so devastating with the black swan. If you've got a refracted horizon, how are you getting a straight line? That was the argument for the horizon. But upon moving away from the horizon, they've not only gone to things like the artificial horizon, they've gone to things like the zenith of the observer, the vertical, the 90 degrees above the observer. And they're on about the co-altitude, which I went over a little bit in my latest video. I mirrored a video from Brian's Logic, how he goes over how we get the nautical miles from the co-altitude. So they're using something like a vertical. So upon getting away from a horizon, they do use a vertical, but upon doing so, they're once again throwing away any sort of globe reference that they have. Like you said, Adam, if they're not using a tangent, which is a line touching any part of a circle or curved surface, if they're not using that, they have no reference to the globe anymore. They can't beg the question that this is happening on a globe anymore. If they're using vertical, it has to be on a flat plane. If they're using a artificial horizon, it has to be on a flat plane. And this is where we're springing the sextant trap in this instance. They are totally in the world, in the paradigm, in the reality of a geometric flat plane.
Yeah, sorry.
Excellent.
Just one. I know I was flipping there. The point you're making here, in all seriousness, in terms of this and this understanding of horizontals and their relationships with verticals, is really important. And Mitch alludes to the ball of suddenly realizing stuff's going up to the sky. We worked out, but this is a full calculation. Yeah, from the ground up to the sky, across the sky, down to the ground and back to you. And this is the importance of horizontal, verticals, parallels, and geometry in this case. And this is how it all works for you to be able to navigate. Not just little bits that they want to take that they can strap onto a ball model, but this is how the whole thing calculates and works for reality. It requires that relationship of horizontal verticals being parallel.
Okay, excellent. Right there at the bottom left. Excellent. I've said it 3 times. Why? Because in this question, horizontal is an adjective that means parallel to or in the plane of the horizon, or what's that word they don't like? Baseline. All right. Well, it's a perpendicular relationship. In mathematics, perpendicular is defined as a straight line that makes the right angle 90 degrees with the other line. In other words, if 2 lines intersect each other at the right angle, then the lines are perpendicular to each other. Now consider the below figure. The line PQ and RS intersect each other at right angles, and hence we can say that the lines PQ and RS are perpendicular to each other. It's interesting that in the navigation books, this could be the sun up here, and this could be the zenith position over the earth. GP of the sun would be right here. The navigator would be over here. And this is that right angle 90 degrees that they all talk about in their own books that you need in order for the sextant to work, because the sextant is an angle measuring device. It needs 2 straight lines to create a vertex. Well, what is the vertex here? Well, if this is the sailor or navigator on the boat, and this is sea level, that would be the baseline. But he's usually on the boat. So then from a little bit above here all the way to here is the dip correction. And that's when dip is required at sea with the natural horizon, but not with an artificial horizon, because you're already assuming this with an artificial horizon. You're already assuming horizontal. It's devastating to the ball argument. And this is what I get from their sites, that this is what they're doing. Well, there's that right angle. There's the sun, and there's the GP. The sun is in the air. Well, how could that work? It needs to be over the earth somewhere. But if we bring this down here, the boat goes up this way, and it's in the air. It could never work on the globe. Right angles can never work on the globe. And that's the sextant and how it operates, proven by the artificial horizon. Back to Bowditch. Let's see, the American Practical Navigator. Measurement of altitude requires an exact horizontal reference. At sea, the visible sea horizon normally provides this reference. If the horizon is not clearly visible, however, a different horizontal reference is required. Such a reference is commonly termed as an artificial horizon. If it's attached to or part of the sextant, altitudes can be measured at sea, on land, or in air. Now we're going into the bubble sextant here, where the actual apparatus of an artificial horizon, a bubble, is attached to the sextant itself. We'll be covering this in a separate show itself. Whenever celestial bodies are available for observations, any horizontal reflecting surface will work. A pan of any liquid sheltered from the wind will serve. All other corrections except dip, height of eye corrections, since this is not applicable. Obviate, should I say? No dip required. Practice of navigation and nautical astronomy. Correction of observed altitude. The corrections necessary to reduce an altitude observed from the sea horizon with a sextant or circle to a true altitude consists of index correction, the dip, and the correction of altitude. When the artificial horizon is used, the dip does not enter into the computation. I bet you right now someone in the audience is saying, I know why, because we already assume it's a baseline horizontal, so we don't have to do dip. Whereas on the ocean, how high am I above the ocean with my eyes? That's the dip correction to make it horizontal, so it's a right angle. The sextant, reflecting mathematical instruments. Artificial horizon. The navigator, in taking an altitude of a heavenly body, uses the sea horizon and corrects his observation to the true horizon by allowing for dip. Some other method must be employed where we have no sea horizon. Polished plane surface. If we place such a surface truly horizontal and observe the angular distance between an object and its image reflected from the horizontal surface, it is evident that the angle so obtained is equal to twice the angular elevation of the object above the true horizon. Obviously, artificial horizon there. How about this one? Glossary of Navigation. Now we're going to go into this image here with another slide that's a little bit more clear, but let me set it up for Adam. This evidently follows that no altitude can be observed in this manner, which is greater than half the range of the instrument. Thus, with a sextant, no altitude above 60 degrees can be observed. For altitudes less than 15 degrees, the observation is generally impracticable. Oh, by the way, just a reminder, there is no correction for dip. Adam, let's have your mind and your understanding of the halving of the angle now.
Yeah. As it's saying there, there's a limitation, as you said. It limits the way and what and how much you can measure in the heavens. And I suppose the first question is why, and second, how. I'm going to start with how. When we use the sextant in its conventional manner, we're starting trying to align the eyepiece with the horizon, which is, close to level. We're going to make adjustments for that. And then from there, we're going to use the swing of the arm to measure, up to 90. We can measure the whole range of the heavens. And that's how that device is designed to work with, using the actual visual sea horizon. And then you've got the full range of scope of the device. Now, that's using the visual horizon to define level. When we go to an artificial horizon, as you can see in the diagram, when we're still going to use that same eyepiece, but instead of it being at 90 degrees to us and our viewpoint, we've got to move it down to the surface to allow it to create the level for us. So whereas previously we'd do dips and adjustments and use the horizon to create level, we're now, as I said earlier, going to use the fact that we know liquid finds its level as the way of getting that level horizon, as we did before. As I mentioned earlier, it's a mirror surface we're wanting, and Tom's showing me with that black surface. You can use a black surface, which is cool, but the whole purpose of it is that we're trying to create a mirror image. And now that center line, where previously we'd have imagined it as the horizon, is now actually the center point of the mirroring. And we're going to try and align the two things in our sextant together in the sextant. And whereas before we tried to get the device level, we don't need to worry about that. What we've got to do is get the two images together, because that middle point is going to be the same, because we're using, if you just go back to the other slide for me 1 second. Yeah, lovely. We're going to use geometry here. So again, we're not using a calculation. We're going to use geometry to make the statement that because of the way the device works, and i.e. aligning the two arms together, that halves the angle. They're now equidistant from each other within the device. We've already ascertained level with the reflective surface through the properties of liquid. So we've got the same things here, but we can only measure half the amount, because as you can see, my sextant won't go above the limitations of the swing arm. And because I'm having to, in an effect, measure the same thing twice. You see, before I'm measuring the horizon and the distance from the horizon to the star. Here, I'm just measuring the star twice in a mirror, and then halving the angle that I'm measuring. And that's what that text was talking about, and that's, I hope, the diagrams show that in the different way you use the apparatus, instead of measuring from A to B, you're measuring A to A in a way, and then having to half it. But in both instances, the device requires you to ascertain that horizontal, so that the angle has a validity. When we use the eye to the horizon, that's how we ascertain the horizontal. And when we use an artificial horizon, we've got a bit more certainty, because we're using the properties of liquids and how they'll always form a flat surface to generate that horizontal to the plane. And this is all the point. It's all of it in the future calculation is to make a reference to the flat plane of which we dwell at the top. You know, that's the purpose of it. Whether it's at the point with the artificial horizon where we bring it down to that level, or whether it's with the sea horizon where we bring and make a dip adjustment to bring it down, or whether we just know its level, so therefore we can make the definitive statement is already parallel to that flat surface that we're going to then apply our calculations to. I think I'm done there.
Okay. Anything, Mitchell?
Yeah, I mean, this slide right here, where is the tangent line to your curved surface here, globe believers, if we're using an artificial horizon? What's that word? Obviated. The globe has been obviated, if I'm using it in the correct sense. We don't take into consideration any curvature in this slide. Can you go back 2 slides, 10th man? Yeah, this one right here. The top one, to dip. You can weasel in, if you're a globe believer, you can weasel in a curved surface there. You can weasel in a tangent line when using the horizon, when to dip. When not to dip, the artificial horizon, where is your tangent line? Where does the globe come into consideration there? You can't even weasel in any curved surface, any globe. You have fully done away with the globe, with any curved surface. You are begging the question, you have confirmed that there is a flat, horizontal, geometric plane beneath your feet. That artificial horizon is just parallel to it. You do not take into consideration any curvature. There is no tangent lines. There is no straight line to any curved surface, which is what a tangent is, when using the artificial horizon. That's why this argument here, that we've got them in, the Sextant trap has sprung the globe believers in this argument using the artificial horizon, because now they're fully out of the globe paradigm. It's been a monumental shift from begging the question that to get an angle in the first instance, they have to assume, they have to beg the question of a flat surface, but then they say that that dip angle is to a curved surface. But then when taking all that away, when using the artificial horizon, there is no curved surface. It is over for the globe. The globe is never taken into consideration here.
Excellent, excellent. Go back. So this is an artificial horizon. You can get a little more close-up image of it. I mean, like that guy you saw, he had a frying pan. I mean, you can use anything, but if you want to have something small that you can carry. And here it shows the reflection of the sun on it. Of course, you have to put in the direction of the sun. What does it say? What is an artificial horizon? Basically, it's a flat, level, horizontal reflecting surface. All right. Where's the curve? It's a flat, level, horizontal reflecting surface. And then what happens when you bring the sextant mirror to it? You see the same image twice. So there it is, and here it is. So you're not using the sun against the real sea horizon, or you wouldn't see the image twice. You would see the sea horizon. But here, because of this doubling factor, that's why you half the angle. So your index should be set to 0 degrees when you do this. You gotta properly align your sextant. But you put that sun, you could touch the limbs, or you could put it over, and there's 2 different ways of doing that in the calculations. But basically, you're assuming a horizontal already, which means the Earth is flat. And then we saw this, and this is just for salt on the wound, I guess. I mean, not to dip. I mean, this ain't a chewing tobacco show, right?
If what's been postulated in the past, like we said, is that the dip angle is to account for the curvature of the Earth, which is the baller's claim as far as I can see. Now, if that was the case, there would be a curvature relationship. There will be some function to it, and I think somebody's tried to fudge one in somehow. But for the best, as my knowledge, I can't see it in there mathematically. And I think more importantly, that would have been fine 5 years ago or 3 years ago, pre-Black Swan. But for a baller to say, yes, this dip relates to the curvature of the Earth, is to reify the horizon as the leading edge of a ball. And to that, all we have to say is Black Swan, because the second you've got that Black Swan image, imagine what it does to your dip correction. Yeah, it makes a mockery of it. And I think what you've laid out in the text, there's people over a century or more have explained this, yeah, in different ways too. Yeah, none of them account or even make apologetics for it. They just ignore the supposed curved falling away ball they're on, but they all describe something with more eloquence, like I said, with that cone of vision that's leading me somewhere, to have to account if you're going to use a visual horizon and reference the surface of the sea. You have to account for the fact that if you're not on the surface, there's a slight adjustment that you have to do for that, and that depends on how high you are. Yeah, and all of these guys demonstrate and recognize that. And you'd think in all of their eloquence and knowledge, if curvature was relevant, it would at least warrant a footnote, and I wasn't witness to that.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Useful navigation for power, steam, and sailboat. Man, we're going way back. Get the tools, men. Sextant, correct time, and artificial horizon. With these articles, you may go to your third-story window or roof and do the site work just as well as the sea. I love this. Think about it. You don't need to be on a boat. You could just go to the third-story window or on your roof and just do it with artificial horizon, because guess what? You have to assume horizontal baseline, and it works just like the way it does at sea once you do dip at sea. But look at that bottom one. There is no dip when using the artificial horizon. Why? Because you already assume it's flat. Where at sea, eye line has to get on the water level. Then it's flat. Then you're got that right angle triangle working for you. Taking the site, place the artificial horizon out of the wind, obviously. And what does it say? No dip. If at sea, you would have to apply the dip from Bowditch, but no dip with artificial. To dip or not to dip, that is the correction, and one of the better sextant traps they all fell for. Site reduction process. The second correction depends on the observer's elevation above sea level, and it's called the dip correction. Dip. The dip correction is a function of the height of eye of the observer. It is always negative. Why? Because you got to bring it down to the sea surface. Altitude corrections for sextant sites. Suffice it to say that the dip correction is always subtracted and is dependent upon the height of eye of the observer over the visible horizon. During a passage, the height of eye usually remains constant, provided that the navigator takes the sights from the same place on the deck of his boat, obviously. Now, I've shared many shows before on Nathan's channel that before a sailboat goes off, they know the various spots on the deck where they're going to do their observations. They use a tape measure, get to the water level in the still harbor where the boat is docked. They know the height already. And they go practice these positions from different parts of the boat so that when they're in the ocean, in case it's tossing and turning, hey, I'm doing it from here. And when I did this, it's 12 feet. Hey, I'm doing it from here. When I did this, it was 16 feet because I'm a little higher up. They already know all this stuff. They already account for it. The American Practical Navigator, Chapter 16. Measurement of altitude requires an exact horizontal reference. Can't say it any better. Normally provided at sea by the visible horizon. If the horizon is not clearly visible, however, a different horizontal reference is required, such as Such a reference is commonly termed an artificial horizon. An external artificial horizon can be improvised by a carefully leveled mirror or a pan of dark liquid. Apply all other corrections except dip, height of eye correction. Since this is not applicable, obviated equals unnecessary. Means you can rule out dip because you're assuming it all to be flat and horizontal and level. Artificial horizon, no dip, Sherlock. Is this clear? There's no dip for the artificial horizon?
I think the bit for me that's important is that it demonstrates that dip is not curve, most importantly. Outside of the understanding of how it works, but it's a clear demonstration that we all know we have to account for dip. But dip is not Earth curve. It's not what you're dealing with.
You know why? Because I've read every reference from their books, and they say dip is height of eye above water level.
If Earth curve, right, was included in dip, then if all you did when you settled a horizontal level was obviate from it, then there is no dip that in terms there is no dealing with Earth curve in terms of dip, because if all you do when you settle the horizon is obviate your height, then there was never Earth curve in the calculation in the first place. What I would say.
Well, I came out with this and says the year of the sextant. Keith says no, forget that. It's the age of the sextant. I think it's a good correction there. It is a beautiful argument. They need that 90. That's the only way angle measuring device can work is with two straight lines that have a vertex in order to get an angle. Adam, wrap it up.
Okay, yeah. So in our chats with me, 10th, Mitchell, and shout out Brian as well, and now Rob's joined the Admirals. We did come up with to dip or not to dip, didn't we?
Yep.
And it was bugging me a little bit. That I thought I'd like to elaborate a little bit, so if people will humour me, and hopefully it explains the functions with regards to what 10th's gone through tonight. So I'll clear my palate. To dip or not to dip, that is the correction, whether 'tis nobler for the sextant to suffer the limitations of artificial horizons, or to take the eye against the sea of troubles, and by opposing them, end them to define a level.
Bravo. Back to you, Mitchell.
This is brilliant, guys. I really enjoyed this today, 10th man. I hope everyone understands now that, like Adam just said, I think that's what can be taken away from this. When we're doing a dip correction, it's not correcting for a curved surface beneath our feet falling away for us. No, because we make no correction when using the artificial horizon. There is no footnotes, as we just mentioned, when using the artificial horizon for a globe for a curved surface. It doesn't. Everything to do with the artificial horizon, we never take into account the globe. The globe has been obviated in this circumstance. There is no globe. We don't take into account any globe when using a sextant, when doing celestial navigation, when navigating, when finding a position. It's just never taken into account. And if you think it is, then you are highly deluded. It has been obviated. I love that word. That is my new favorite word. Word of the day on Sesame Street, obviated.
Can I give a summary?
You can.
Okay, as someone who could re-listen to this show again, you'll find that parallel to the natural horizon is mentioned, horizontal is mentioned, plane will be horizontal, leveling is mentioned, horizontal plane is mentioned, Mercury surface, which of course is horizontal, will be mentioned. Liquid will be perfectly parallel with the horizon. No dip correction needed will be mentioned. Carefully leveled will be mentioned. With a sensitive level will be mentioned. Horizontal reference and exact horizontal reference will be mentioned. These are all from their own documents. And when they do, from a third-story building or a roof or landlocked like Lewis and Clark, they use an artificial horizon, and there is no dip, because in that little space where they use that little tool, it's showing what the world is. Level, horizontal, baseline. Sextant is an angle measuring device. Angles can only be had with straight lines. Impossible to work on the globe. I think QE said it best in the short 3-point notes there. I think you have them.
Yeah, I'll go through the 3 steps. Okay, attention. This is from Quantum Eraser. Attention to all flat earthers. The official end of the ball-tard spinning space monkey religion is here. Follow these 3 easy steps. Number 1. Are sextants used by mariners to successfully navigate using the relationship between the Earth's surface and celestial objects? Obviously, that's what we're doing with the sextant, and that's what mariners are doing. Number 2, are sextants used to obtain elevation angles from your position to celestial objects? And number 3, can you obtain an elevation angle from a curved adjacent, which is curved baseline? Welcome to Flat Earth. It's all over for the globe. It's as simple as that. Keep it simple. Like the information that we've gone through today has just demonstrated that it always has to be, it always was, it always will be a flat horizontal baseline. No curvature, no curved adjacent, no tangent lines, no globe taken into consideration. This has been an absolutely killer presentation, 10th Man. And Adam, thank you for interjecting where needed. Can we just go back a couple of slides to the age of the sextant slide? That's the only thing I need to correct us on. I actually came up with age of the sextant and QE ran with it, but that's okay. QE can have it.
Was that before breakfast or after breakfast you got it?
The Breakfast Club on the Quantum Eraser channel. Exactly. Was there any other slides? I just want to pull up something in 10th Man.
No, I think that's it. Is to dip or not to dip is the correction. I mean, that's a perfect title for today's show. And when we have time to do the bubble sextant at its own space and time, you'll see that 30,000 feet, what does that guy do? Well, he uses a sextant with a bubble device on it, a spirit level.
Apologies, I didn't mean to play that video, but I was just trying to
that's all right.
give you a bit of a visual. Yeah, so when you're at 30,000 feet, like is in this video from Dr. Bob, the pseudoscience guy, that horizontal line, if that could be any height above the surface. Now, obviously, when you've got a horizontal there, you're using something like a bubble sextant in a plane, or you could just use an artificial horizon. At no time are you drawing a tangent to that globe, to that curved surface. Where is your curved surface, globe believers? Like 10th Man was just about to explain, when we're at 30,000 feet, we're not drawing a tangent line to a surface. We're already assuming it's a horizontal plane.
Exactly.
At both points, they're trying to attain the horizontal, but with like I said, their undoing is the fact that they try to pretend that the sea horizon is the leading edge of a ball. As soon as you try to pretend that adjustment is to the adjustment of curvature, irrespective of your height, then you're making a bold claim that the calculations don't support, that the experts, navigators don't support, or even the description of, I said, that cone of viewing doesn't support. And that's, to me, where they're done on that point. It's that point that they have to, and it's the loveliness of the black swan to me, and how the sextant and the black swan intertwine in a lovely ménage à deux, and support each other very well. because in their fundamentals of trying to claim that dip angle is some link to geometry of a ball, that's the only thing they can draw. And what this shows is that's bunkum. So that is fundamentally underwritten by the Black Swan.
Absolutely. Did you have any slides of the Black Swan in here, 10th Man, in your presentation?
No, not on this one, but I am trying to send you, just occupy while I send you a slide. I'll be right back.
I mean, in this image here, this is why I wanted to bring up this image, because Dr. Bob here, he has obviated the globe. There is no consideration. You've got that curved surface, yeah, the semicircle, but at no point are we doing anything with this curved surface. It is all to do with the horizontal. That's why he's put it so far off the globe. It's not even a tangent plane anymore. It is solely a flat horizontal plane, perpendicular to a vertical plane, the 90. At no point does the curved surface come into this. That's why we keep repeating, you should have stuck with the horizon, globe believers, because you could weasel your way in a tangent line with the artificial horizon. There is no tangent. We've got a few questions in the chat. I just want to shout out Lumberjack, who sends me a $50 super chat saying happy holidays, much love. Thank you so much for the support. Lumberjack is really appreciated. We've got some questions from the archivist. I think I might have just answered it, but he said, wouldn't the artificial horizon give a tangent reading to the curved surface? Adam, did you want to take that one? He asked, wouldn't the artificial horizon give a tangent reading to the curved surface?
Yes, and that's what well, yes, that's what a baller would try to make apologetics for. But remember, these things are developed after the use of the sextant, and the premise is that the horizon is the adjustment to create the tangent when you're using the sextant in its standard use. Black Swan. Yeah.
That's why the Black Swan is so devastating. When you think you're doing anything to the horizon, if you think you have a tangent line, it's not curved. It is not a straight tangent line. Refraction, remember, with the Black Swan? Or what is the horizon? Is a physical leading edge to your globe? No, Black Swan. You can't use the horizon anymore. That's why they're trying to run away from the horizon. And upon doing so, look what Dr. Bob's done. There's no tangent plane. There's no tangent line to that curved surface in this image right here. That's why it's so devastating. We've got a question from Flatside says, deduced reckoning. Do we, I think...
That's DR position, dead reckoning, which is deduced reckoning. What's the question?
Yep. Obviously, when we're starting out, we have a position that we know we're in. I think the question was, do we take into consideration deduced reckoning or dead reckoning when using the sextant?
Yes. The navigator keeps logs, obviously, on an hourly basis, usually. They have to adjust for currents, wind, all kinds of stuff, see if they veer off course or not. And the DR position, dead reckoning, deduced reckoning, it came from deduced reckoning, is the last position that they've logged. Now, what if it's cloudy? You can't see any luminary. And what if it's cloudy for a week? Well, you're out of luck. I mean, if you don't got any kind of electronics and all you got is a sextant, you can't do it. So you have to go back to your last position and say, this is where I was. Then when the sky opens up and you're able to see some stars and you start sighting again, then you can see how far you veered off of that last position from your longitude, latitude, once you go through the calculations.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point trying to do celestial navigation without the celestial objects in the sky, is there?
Right.
That is look, this stuff's invented. The purpose of that is exactly said. If the clouds go over, your GPS drops, to put it in modern terms. So you've got to have a good idea of what you're doing. And what you're doing then, I assume. I don't pretend to be a navigator, but what you've got to do is measure which way the winds are blowing, which way you're going to get blown off course, how long for until the next time you can take a reading to figure out where you are. You know what I mean? On sailboat in the 18th century. It's quite a frightening prospect, and that's why there's some bloke constantly taking readings, because it's a life and death situation, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And that's why you do dead reckoning, because it might be important in a life and death situation.
Well, not only that, but obviously I heard your phone, so you got the image. You can put that up when you're able to, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'll try and put that up, 10th. Yeah.
So dead reckoning is how. See, you have to guess. To find out where you are, you have to guess where you're not. I mean, you got to read the things on this. So you assume it's your assumed position. I think I'm over here. Then you cite the star, and it says, well, you're 5 miles off of what you thought you were. Then you make the correction. Then you know where you are. But first, you got to be within a proximity of where you think you are. And that's how it's done. Just watch some videos on this. Listen, my only claim, and where I spend most of my time, is what is the tool? It's an angle measuring device. And then I went into what an angle is. You need 2 straight lines in the vertex. Impossible to work on the globe. Then I knew the sextant could be investigated further. And that's when I found about the artificial horizon, all these other things. There's so many parts of the sextant you can be an expert on. Okay, the tables, the this, the that. But the doggone tool can't work on the globe. Can't have a curved adjacent. It's over right there. We don't even have to go anymore. You can show that slide. Let me know when it's up.
Yeah, I'm still trying to save it. But it's hard to share images with this program, but yeah, I'm endeavoring to at the moment. We've also got, we've got Brian's Logic. I've allowed him to join as well. Brian, how are you? Thank you for joining the stream. There's something you wanted to comment on, Brian? If you're here, hopefully. No. Unmute you, Brian. Brian, you are muted.
Yeah, how are things? I'm in.
Cool.
I just wanted to show something there when I don't want to step on Adam and 10's toes. I just want to show something there to do with the dip. Dip correction. The ball.
Yeah. We're done. Go ahead.
If you don't mind. So I'm going to share my screen, okay?
Yep. When it comes up, I'll put it on the screen, mate. I just want to shout out John Furr, who sends me a $20 Canadian super sticker. Thank you so much, John Furr. I really appreciate the support. Brian, just bringing up your screen share.
You can tell me when I'm
it's up at the moment. So you're sharing your full screen. So anything that you see, the audience
yeah,
will
it's
see.
not there. No, it's not. It's just
okay.
normal everyday stuff. Okay, this is from an official. This is from I just get the name of it now. 10 sent it to me. One of the things 10 sent to me. The Sextant's User's Manual for let's see, Davis Master Sextants. Okay, this is from the Davis Master Sextants User's Guide, right? Just want to show something here. So there is the person, right? The blue line is his dip to the visible, real, actual horizon. The purple line, right, is a dip to a mathematical geometric horizon, a believed horizon. See, they knew, this is evidence that they have known for a long time that the geometric horizon is purely a mathematical position. They have known this for a long time. And that's why Rumpus was so easy, so fast to tell us, oh, it's just mathematical. Because they've known for a long time it is only mathematical. But they spent the first few years of this debate trying to, I'm talking about the people we deal with, they spent the first few years of this debate trying to make us believe that it was physical. It was a real physical place, right? And make us try and agree to it being physical and argue over it as a physical place. But the difference is that in navigation, they've known for a long time that it isn't a physical place. And that is purely mathematical, because they know the visible horizon is the only horizon that they're going to see. They don't see this other horizon. So I just want to show something here. So it's going to move this purple line. So that's a black line there. That is part of the diagram, okay? And what they've done is they've brought this black line up past where the person's eyes are, right? So it takes you away from where the person's eyes are. Now I've added in the blue line because that is the dip this person would see to the actual visible horizon, right? So they put in this purple line or this black line that I'm going to cover over a purple line, and they brought it past the person's eyes. If I shorten it down to where the person's eyes are, then which is the dip? Is it this one here, or is it this mathematical position down here? This one down here doesn't exist. This is mathematical only. But then I want to bring your attention to height of eye correction over here. So now if I correct, right, the height of eye, using the purple line, if I correct the height of eye, right, using this line, bring this line down to correct for height of eye, and bring up the dip side, their mathematical dip side, what will happen is this. This will come up here, that will go down there, right? There's your horizontal. And that's what they do. They have a mathematical dip, right? And they add in this mathematical dip that doesn't exist, right? Past the visible dip. They add in this mathematical dip that doesn't exist, and then they correct for height of eye, which gives them a horizontal. And that's what happens. That's the dip. It's not what they're saying. It's complete. They don't have a geometric horizon to dip to. That's the whole point of the black swan. And they're admitting this is admittance. This is an absolute admittance, because I'm going to move away these two lines a sec. This is an admittance from an official Sextant user's manual. What this height of eye, this area here, right? This little area here between the two arrows, that's what they're correcting for, right? The dip to this, to the dip here is the real, this blue dip, right? That's the real dip, right? But they're mathematically adding in this, I'm not going to show it now, this other black line here, right, to give the impression that that's the real dip. It's not. That's the mathematical dip. The height of eye correction is the real correction. So it doesn't matter. If I take this purple line, I'm just going to show something, right? If I take this purple line and I bring it down here, it doesn't matter, because once I have to do the height of eye correction, once that side comes down, then this side has to come up. Because the height of eye correction, what's it going to be? Is this the height of eye correction if I don't bring up this other side? What is that going to be? That's like if I do it with their black line, right? I use what they're using there, right? Their dip, right? Now, let's say I just bring just from the eye line, just that part down, right? What's that?
Yeah, it's got a cord going through the center.
It's complete nonsense. Once they bring that down, they then bring this up in all shows in the maths. They then bring this back up, and they have their horizontal. That's what it is. It's a mathematical. They have this mathematical geometric dip that does not exist. It's very simple.
That's perfect. Well said. You remember the Association of American Geographers? We must embrace the fiction in our science.
Yeah.
That's where they're at. Look, Andrew Thomas Young, if push comes to shove, will say it's a thought experiment. It doesn't exist.
Exactly. So I'll share my screen now again.
Yep. Thanks for that, Brian. Really appreciate it. 10th, that slide is up on screen now.
Okay. Excellent point from Brian. Yeah. So when we do the bubble sextant, it's going to be a lot of the same things. So it'll be a shorter presentation because obviously you don't do dip with a bubble sextant as well. But you're lining the image of the stars or the sun to a bubble. So guess what? No dip. And at 30,000 feet, you got to assume that's flat. So that means below you has got to be flat because it's parallel. I mean, everything about dip or not to dip is proving it's flat to begin with. Because what Brian just showed is if you're using the natural sea horizon, you've got to get to sea level so you have a flat baseline. What the artificial horizon and the bubble sextant, as shown here in this picture, will show is that you already are at a horizontal flat baseline. That's why obviate. You don't need dip. It's not necessary because you're already matching the surface of the Earth. It's so good. It's awesome.
That's brilliant. That is fantastic. We've got another question as well from Lumberjack. He asks, if you know at a certain time where the almanac says a star's zenith position is, can't you map the Earth? Like make a model out of that? Out of the, I suppose he's asking, can we use the star's zenith position to kind of create a map of the Earth? I think we kind of can.
Well, that's a good question. We are not on that subject. We are using the sextant and the zenith position, the GP of each star, to show that we navigate on a flat plane. And as this is open source, because we're willing to share all our findings, someone else could take that by the helm and go study that, because there are so many things that are going to come off of this argument.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I went with this argument in the first place when I came out with my video titled "The #1 Flat Earth Proof." I I looked at those maps and I saw that, yeah, upon making that angle of elevation measurement to get the circle of equal altitude, doing multiple circles of equal altitude, you're actually physically measuring the world around you as flat. If you've and I showed on a celestial navigation map with the GPs of the stars at any certain point. If you've got two observers, you can literally physically measure the entire known world, and that's why I want to emphasize the known world with the GPs of the stars. You can measure the entire known world as a geometric flat plane using the sextant with just two observers. That's how devastating the sextant is. We haven't really even got into that topic yet, but yeah, it is something that will be coming up. But yeah, I think if we get enough people to do these observations around our beautiful flat plane that we have just absolutely proved is a definite flat plane, I think we can come up with a method of measuring our entire world as flat and making a map out of it. But that's a bit down the track, isn't it, 10th?
Yeah, it's not, I'm not in any hurry. That's a lot of work, lots of resources. But one thing for sure, as you see in the picture, Earth is level. Baseline must be level. That radius from the circle of equal altitude is a straight line. You can't have a bent radius. So welcome to flat Earth. And when people say, oh, you guys have never held a sextant, or you guys have never read the manual of a sextant. Well, Brian just read you one. My goodness, how embarrassing is it that you believe pictures and drawings over true geometry? Embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing to read something out of a book and look at the description and look at the pictures, and there's another thing to actually critically think about it. This is what's needed when using the sextant. Yes, you critically think about what we're doing. Are we using a sextant? Yes. What is a sextant? An angle measuring device. What are we doing when using the sextant? Obtaining an elevation angle. All these things, you need a flat baseline. At no point does any curvature of the surface come into it. When using the artificial horizon, that is already assuming we have a flat plane. When using the bubble sextant, that's already assuming we have a flat plane. There is no curvature involved at whatsoever, obviated. The curvature, the globe has been obviated. We do not need it anymore. We've done away with it.
Just to think, Mitchell, that the sextant killed the globe, but now dip or no dip killed the globe. There's so many facets coming. It'll be so exciting to go into 2022 with this as our starting point.
I mean, it's looking very bright for flat Earth, isn't it? It is a glorious day to be a flat Earther. Adam, have you got any final remarks before we round out the show?
Nothing too profound. No, I mean, you started the show about the sextant trap, and as I think we alluded to, there's a lot for us to still unveil, for us to have a fuller understanding of what's going off. I think as far as the ballers are concerned, we've got all their angles covered.
I mean, yeah.
Nice pun.
Thank you very much, Mr. Temp.
That's brilliant, Adam. Thank you. Love a pun. There was some good puns going through the chat. I was trying to pick them up, but I didn't write them down. That's all right. We'll save it for next time. We'll do a whole pun show.
Can I say something before you end, Mitchell, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I'll make it brief. Recently, me and Mitchell and other flat earthers who spent a lot of time in this and debated a lot of different people, we have put a fee on our time. So I can't speak for everyone else, but my fee is €5,000 for 2 hours of a debate. or €3,000 for 1 hour of a debate. Now, the reason that's happening is because I don't want to have my time wasted any longer. The same as Mitchell and other people who now charge, right? Because we're having our time wasted for a long time by people who just want to waste our time, and there's no movement forward happening. Now, what I see happening is ever since I did that, there seems to be a lot of brave people on the border side who are challenging people to debates, blah, 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 blah. Now, I personally put out challenges to anyone many times. I even went into Jose's 3 different times, I think it was, and challenged anyone to a debate. I've done that. I've debated anywhere that anyone wanted me to debate over those years. I've gone to border channels. I didn't try and keep it on the flat outside, did all that kind of stuff. But we have people who are on the border side who are trying to be the big men and trying to be throwing out challenges left, right, and centre. And there was a guy there earlier called Tom Wellbourne or something is his name in the chat, right? I'm not losing his name now. And he was making challenges, and I challenge anyone, and I go out in the open sea with anyone, and I show all you flat earthers you're all wrong, blah, 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 and grow up here and all this big talk, right? Where, like, this guy, where was he before, like, where was this guy? Where was all this bravery before? And more to the point, this guy wants to get people over onto Discord, into Gem's server, right? Which is a completely totally not a place you're going to get a fair hearing, and it's on Discord. So it's only within that little group of people that are on that Discord. It's not public, it's not out in the open, it's not on YouTube, right? So to him or anyone else, if they want to be debating me, for instance, right? He didn't mention me, but if he or anyone, any rest of them wants to debate me, there is a charge for that. If he wants me to go out on the open ocean with him, then he's going to have to pay for everything and pay my fee, right? And there might be even a bigger fee depending on what I have to do, right? But other than that, I'll be on, when I'm on Nathan's, I can't guarantee when I'll be on that, but when I'm on there, him or anyone else that wants to challenge me, right, they're welcome to join Nathan's and challenge me out in the public on YouTube. I don't need to be, and I won't be on Discord servers where nobody hears anything. You can get away with all kinds of stuff, especially on Gems, where it's going to be all in your favor. So if him and people like him are so brave, how come they're hiding in Discord? Where was all this bravery when I was going looking to debate on? I looked for the debate people on the biggest baller channels I could find with the most amount of subscribers. Why? Because then the whole world gets to see. The whole world's not going to see what happens on Discord. So if you're so brave and if you really believe it, then you pay all my bills and my fee, and I'll go out on the open ocean with you as long as I have verified that you know what you're doing on the ocean. Because both sides of my family, right, both on my mother's and father's side, have generations on the ocean. So I have to verify that who you are and what you actually do, and that you actually are safe to be on the ocean. So I'm not going out in the ocean with just any old idiot, right? So I'll do all that, and there'll be a fee in it. So if you want me to do that, grand, you have to pay for everything, flights, hotels, you name it, right? You're going to have to pay for absolutely everything if you want me to do that. I won't be on Discord hiding away. I don't do debates unless people pay me €5,000 for 2 hours or €3,000 for 1 hour, right? Then I'll debate you, whatever, no hassles. You don't get any special treatment for that. You'll just get a straight debate. Other than that, I'll be on Nathan's, right? When I'm on Nathan's, anyone who wants to come in and challenge me there, you can come in and challenge me for free. Anytime I'm in there, challenge me on any subject, including the Sextant.
I mean, that's the point that Brian's making here. How long have we been going on to Globe channels to make them money for? How long have we been the entertainment making them money on their channels? Brian's point there is you can still catch us free. I open my channel up publicly to anyone who wants to share their pain to come on to voice their pain if they're a Glober, or to voice your love if you're a flat earther. Nathan does a daily debate show. Nathan Oakley 1980, subscribe and like today. He opens his platform up to anyone who wants to come in and debate. Quantum Eraser does weekly, multiple streams. You can come in for free. We are all available. But if you want us on your channel, you're going to have to pay for us. That's Brian's take on the situation at the moment. We're not validating Globe believers anymore because that's all you have, a belief. We have all the proof. We have all the evidence. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you so much, 10th Man, for being here today. Any final thoughts?
I'm 5,000 an hour. Brian's got a deal.
I mean, Brian's got a really good deal. Yeah, 5,000 for 2 hours. Well, that is euros. I'm also 5,000 Australian for 1 hour. But like we said, you can catch us live and for free on Nathan Nokley 1980, on Mitchell from Australia channel, on Quantum Eraser channel. You can catch us for free. If you want us in your streams making you money, you're going to have to pay us. But this has been an awesome presentation. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you so much, 10th Man. Thanks for interjecting a bit at the end there, Brian. To dip or not to dip, that is the correction. It has been a fantastically jam-packed show, full of information, full of knowledge, full of truth, that there is no globe beneath your feet. It is a figment of your imagination if you still think you are living on a globe. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate you coming on.
Cheers. My pleasure.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mitchell.
If you feel like the world turns on you, turn to Flat Earth School. It is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I've been Mitchell from Australia. They've been Adam Meakin, 10th Man, and Brian's Logic, absolutely smashing the notion that we have a globe, absolutely proving beyond all doubt that we have a geometric flat plane beneath our feet that we dwell upon. Everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Get out and experience your beautiful Flat Earth School. It is the best teacher you could ever hope for. Thank you so much for all the super chats, for the support, for the views. Have a great weekend. Get out and experience your Flat Earth School. See you guys.